Welcome back to Sanhedrin. We're actually not going to go to Sanhedrin. Well, we are going to go to Sanhedrin straight away, but we're going to go immediately after we've gone to Sanhedrin. We're going to go to what I promised you last week, and that is the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel. Now, Jackie's already looked it up, and so he knows all about this. Let's get to it. I'm going to share the Gemarah with you. We're on page 128 in the Steinsaltz. I don't know if you can see it, Johnny, with
Yeah,
your poorly eye at the
I've got
moment.
it in front. I've got one here.
Yeah, you're okay reading it.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's on 22, top of 22a. Sorry, but yeah, but top of 22a in the Vilna shafts. I'll put it on the screen now so you can see it. There we go. And we are getting involved with a particular subject. The subject matter is the change in script that Ezra brought in from the Ktav Ivri, from what is known as the Hebrew script, all very confusing, to Ktav Ashuri, to the square Ashuri script. If I just scroll up the page over here, we will see Julia's Ben Amram Street sign, and we will also see the two alphabets side by side. Now, we're going to come back to this little picture. It's very handy that it's there. We're going to come back to this in the Gemarah in a little while. So the subject matter is the difference between these two scripts, where they came in when they came in, who brought them in, and why, and all that stuff. That's the subject matter of our Gemarah at the moment. I'm going to mute everybody because I'm getting some feedback and I don't know where it's coming from. So I'm going to mute you all. If you want to talk, unmute yourself. Right, there we go. Feedback has gone. So let's go back to where we're up to. We're getting involved with a letter, sorry, I beg your pardon, a word which we're familiar with, and we spoke about it last week. Johnny, it was that pointed it out. Manishtana halayla hazeh. Why is this night not means to change? So we're talking about the changing of the script. That's what this Gemarah is all about. So it took us, the Gemarah quotes here at the top of my page here, and it's right at the top of the daf of 22a. Uchtav hanishtabin katuv aramit umaturgam aramit. And that is a direct quote from the book of Ezra himself. Let's have a look at the book of Ezra. I don't think I got Ezra ready. I got Daniel ready. Let's just go to Ezra for a minute. Thought I'd got this ready, but I didn't. Give me a second to find Ezra. There we are, chapter 4, verse 7. There we go. Right. So there is our verse here. And in the days of Artaxerxes, Achashverosh was mentioned in the previous pasuk. This is a different king. Mithradet, Tabil, and all these guys, they wrote with peace to Artaxerxes, the king of Persia, and the script of the epistle. What's an epistle? Anybody know what an epistle is?
We have it on Hoshana Rabbah, don't we? We talk about an epistle. Or is it Yom Kippur?
A letter.
A letter. Yeah, an epistle is just an old-fashioned English word for a letter. When did you last use epistle in your daily language, David?
Isn't a legal term as well?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Anyway, I got an epistle this morning from the bank telling me that I need to pay my something or other. So that's what an epistle is. It's a letter. So the script of this letter that was written by these kings was written in Aramaic and explained in Aramaic. Okay, But look at the Hebrew word, uchtav hanishtavan. See the word manishtana in there? Nishtana? That's what our Gemarah is talking about. Let's go back to the Gemarah. Uchtav hanishtavan katuv aramit. This letter, the writing in this letter was different. Yeah? Nishtane, different. It was different. What was it different about it? It means that the script had changed. Uchtiv, and then we go to the Gemarah takes us to where I promised you, to the book of Daniel. Okay, we're going to read the story in the book of Daniel now. Let's go to Daniel. Where are you, Daniel? There you are. Okay, now then, you'll know this story. And as I said last week, the sadness is that we know these stories from Hollywood rather than from our Tanakh. And this is the story. King Belshazzar. Belshazzar. Now, who was he, first of all? Where was he a king? Who was he? Who was Belshazzar?
Nebuchadnezzar's son.
Very good. He was Nebuchadnezzar's son. And he was the king after Nebuchadnezzar died. And he made a great feast for his 1,000 dignitaries, and he drank as much wine as the 1,000. So he was a bit of a shikara. Now, this is a king making a great feast. Sound familiar to you?
Yeah. Purim.
Purim, okay. Similar story to Purim. Next verse, Belshazzar said with the council of the wine, meaning he said when he was drunk, the council of the wine. It's a great expression that. In Hebrew, it's bita'im chamra, with the taste of the chamra is alcohol. So yeah, with the council of the wine, Belshazzar said to bring the golden and silver vessels that his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple that was in Jerusalem. Does that sound familiar to you?
Same story.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in the Megillah, don't we? What do we see in the Megillah? We see that Mikalim Shonim. They used all sorts of different vessels there, gold and silver and all that stuff at Achashverosh's party at the beginning of the Megillah. The Mefarshim tell us that those gold and silver vessels that that Achashverosh was using were in fact the vessels of the temple. Well, where did he get them from? Who was Achashverosh? He was the king of
Persia.
Persia. Okay. And who was Belshazzar? He was the king of
Syria.
No. Close. Where was he the king of? Okay, let's make it easy for you. Who was Nebuchadnezzar the king of?
In Babylon, wasn't it?
Babylon. Correct. Belshazzar, his son, was the king of Babylon. Now, who destroyed the temple?
Yes.
The Babylonians. So it's understood that Nebuchadnezzar had the vessels from the temple, right? We've seen it with the second temple. Who destroyed the second temple?
Rome.
The Romans. And where do we see that the Romans took the vessels?
The Vatican.
We know they went to the Vatican. How do we know that, Jackie?
Because of Titus's gate.
Correct. Titus's arch. The relief on the Titus's arch is the Roman soldiers taking away the menorah and the other vessels of the temple. So we know that from the second temple. And we know from Daniel, from this chapter, that the same thing happened in the first temple. The Babylonians took the vessels, all the golden and silver vessels that were in the temple, they took them back to Babylon and they kept them in the palace there. similar to what the Romans did. They kept it in their palace. Where was their palace? The Vatican. So that's possibly where they still remain to this day. Who knows? But back then, it was in Babylon. Right. My question then is, I understand that Nebuchadnezzar has got these vessels. I understand that Belshazzar has got these vessels. How come Achashverosh had them a little later?
The Persians took over Babylonia at the end of this story.
Correct. Simple. The Persians defeated the Babylonians, and they were the new superpower. Something else, Julia, another reason why he might have had them. Who did Achashverosh marry? Amongst others.
She married Vashti, and Vashti was an heiress. And wasn't Vashti the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar? Or some relation or granddaughter?
Yes. I can't remember the exact relationship. I think she might have been the daughter of Belshazzar, actually. But I need to check that. But you're right. She was a Babylonian princess. And so it's quite possible that she brought to the marriage all of this stuff. And in fact, the Mefarshim say that Achashverosh was actually a commoner, and his only entitlement to the throne was through Vashti. And that's why he was not actually all that keen on getting rid of Vashti, because Vashti was his access into the throne. How do we know he wasn't so keen on getting rid of Vashti?
Did he ask for advice rather than insisting she be executed straight away?
Yeah, he did ask for advice. You're absolutely right. And the advice came along and said, away with her. Some say she was executed. Some say she was just imprisoned. But how do we know that? How do we know that actually he wasn't all that keen on that idea? Have a look at chapter 2 of Esther on the screen for you. After these matters, i.e. the business with Vashti, when the king's anger subsided, Zacharet Vashti, he remembered Vashti, Ve'et asher asata, all that she had done, Ve'et asher nigzar aleha, and that which had been decreed upon her. Now, on a simple reading, what does that mean? On a simple reading, what does that mean?
He felt sorry for what he'd done.
I don't think that means that on a simple reading, but I think on a deeper reading it means that, and we'll come to that in a sec. On a simple reading, I think it means he remembered what she'd done. Why might he have forgotten it?
Drunk.
Yeah, counsel of the wine. He was shikha. And when his fury subsided, and also when his hangover subsided, he remembered what she'd done. And what had she done?
Not come to the feast.
Yeah, she'd refused to obey his order to come to the party. And that which had been decreed upon her, what was that?
Yeah.
Good day.
Yeah, good day. Finished. You're out. And he remembered that, right? Now, on the simple reading, it means, okay, well, we've got rid of her. We need to get a new queen. It might mean this. He remembered what she had done. And what she had done, actually, was to hand him the crown on a plate, because she was the Babylonian princess. She was the one through whom he became king. And he remembered that. And he remembered what his stupid advisors had gone and told him to do, and he'd done it. And now he's in a bit of shtoch, because he has made himself vulnerable. So on a deeper reading of that verse, we can see perhaps that Achashverosh was not too happy with what he'd done with Vashti. How did we get onto that? Because I asked you about the vessels, right? How did Achashverosh get them? He took over, the Persians took over from the Babylonians. He became the king of Persia, possibly as a result of marrying Vashti. Anyway, let's go back to Daniel. Belshazzar is having his party, same sort of party that Achashverosh had, takes out these gold and silver vessels in order that the king himself, his dignitaries, his queen and his concubines should drink from them. Okay, next pasuk. So they did that. They brought them, and the king, his dignitaries, and his queen and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised gods of gold, silver, copper, iron, wood, and stone. What is that all about?
Idol worship.
Idol worship, correct. And that is a pretty damning thing to do with the vessels of the Bet Mikdash. You couldn't get much worse than that. To use the vessels of the Bet Mikdash, which are holy and have been designated and consecrated for holy use, you use them for Avodah Zarah. It doesn't get much worse than that. Okay, this is a pretty awful thing to have happened. Now, as it turns out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't too pleased with Belshazzar about this for obvious reasons. And in the middle of this party, while they're all getting shikha with the vessels of the Bet Mikdash, something very strange happened. Verse 5. Bashata nefaka etzba'an di yad anish v'chatvan lekaver nivrashta al gira di chata lechla di malka umalka chaza pas yada di chatzva. Did you understand any of that? No,
Aramaic.
because it's in Aramaic. Right, it's in Aramaic. Correct. Now, I told you that there are two parts of Tanakh in Aramaic. Parts of Sefer Daniel and parts of Sefer Ezra. Now, what that means in English is on the screen. Verse 5. At that time, the fingers of a human hand emerged and wrote opposite the candelabrum. What candelabrum are we talking about?
The menorah.
I imagine the menorah. Opposite the candelabrum, opposite the menorah, on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw the palm of the hand that was writing. Right, this hand came up, started writing. The writings on the wall. The writings on the wall. By the way, who can think of a modern iteration of this pasuk? See who can read my warped and peculiar mind.
You say the writings on the wall when your time's up, I think.
Yeah. Well, you'll see why it means that in a minute.
Yeah.
But there's a modern, fairly modern anyway. I remember it from when I was a kid on the telly. Anyone read my mind? What am I talking about?
Writings on the wall.
Where a hand came out, a dismembered hand.
Frankenstein.
Sounds like the Addams Family.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking about, Julia. The Addams Family. Remember, it was called Thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah. This dismembered hand came out of a box, and I was dead scared of that as a kid. Anyway, it shows you what an impression it made on me. I just thought of it now. So anyway,
I didn't think they had televisions in Manchester back then, John.
only black and white ones, David. Only black and white ones. So at that time, the fingers of a human hand emerged and wrote opposite. Now, what happened here was, I'm not going to read the Aramaic because it's too hard. Then the king, his color changed. right? We say that's another modern expression, isn't it? The color drained from his face. Why?
I'm sorry, because the feedback's coming from me because I'm not at home. But I just want to ask you about why he saw the palm of his hand, because you wouldn't normally see the palm when somebody's writing. You see the back of it. Is there any significance in it being the palm?
I don't think so. I think that might just be the translation.
My translation is fingers.
Yeah, the fingers, etzba'an, you can see the fingers at the beginning of the pasuk there. What Julie is referring to is here at the end of the pasuk, the palm, pas yada. Pas yada is Aramaic and it means the palm. I don't know is the answer. You're right. You would see the back of the hand if you saw it writing.
I've got a translation for that word of part.
Part of the hand, yeah. Pass is a stripe, isn't it?
So there's a note here, John, in Art Scroll that says that the Aramaic counterpart of yad doesn't only mean the hand, it means the whole arm.
Oh, okay. Where's that? Which footnote is that?
No, this is in Art Scroll Daniel.
Oh, Art Scroll Daniel. Okay. Right. Good question, Julia. Don't know the answer to it, but a hand, front or back. Okay. Now, the king, his color changed. We say that in English as well. The color drained from his face. Why did he color drain from his face? And his thoughts frightened him. The belts of his loins became untied. What does that mean? Another English expression.
Got his knickers in a twist.
Yes. Okay. He got his knickers in a twist. I think it's a euphemism. He pooed his pants. I think it's a euphemism for he lost control of his bowels. Why? Because dead scared. We have that expression in English, don't we? I'm not going to say it, but if you're very scared, your bowels can do funny things. So he's very scared. The color has drained from his face. He's very frightened. He's lost control of his bowels, and his knees knocked one against the other. Very, very vivid description of a terrified person. Why is he so frightened? Why is he so frightened?
Because he couldn't understand what was happening.
Because he didn't understand what was happening. Couldn't read the writing. Didn't know what it said. Right? Didn't know what it said. He's got this hand or arm. The king cried out aloud to bring the necromancers, the Chaldeans and the astrologers. Right? What does that remind you of?
Pharaoh.
Yeah, Pharaoh. Right? Pharaoh gets these funny dreams and he doesn't understand them and he's frightened by them and he brings his necromancers and his chartumim, his magicians and all that lot. Same idea. He brings the people who are meant to be able to understand these things. And the king shouted and said to the wise men of Babylon, any man who shall read this writing and tell me its interpretation shall wear purple. What's that mean?
The royal colours.
The royal colours, yes. He'll become a king and have a golden chain on his neck and rule over a third of the kingdom. What's that sound like to you?
Haman.
No.
Mordecai and half the kingdom.
You're safe. Yeah. Pharaoh says, whoever can understand my dream. What happened? Joseph came along, interpreted the dream, and he wore purple. He got a golden chain round his neck, and he became the ruler of Egypt. It's the same idea here. The king shouted and said, whoever reads this will become an important person in my kingdom. And similarly, as in Pharaoh, all the king's wise men entered, but they could not read the writing or let the king know its interpretation. Why not? Why not? Why could nobody read this stuff?
Because they didn't know the script.
They didn't know the script. It was a new script, right? They were used to reading stuff in the old script of Ivri. Let's go back to our Gemarah for a second to show the picture. They were used to reading it with the letters on the left-hand side. And these letters are on the right-hand side. Now, I don't know if we've got a picture of it here, or no, I had it in my, I showed it you on my screen, didn't I? I showed you a picture of old script. Could you read a word of that?
No.
No. Well, imagine then you are now the king and you've got a completely different script. You don't know what it says. It's like somebody writing Chinese, right? We wouldn't understand a word with all those symbols. He didn't understand it because the script had changed. And so now he brings all his wise men in, verse 8, and they don't know what it reads either. Now, who was at this party? Sorry, Juliet, you're muted.
The youngsters who were taken from Israel, who were being trained to be future leaders of Israel, but supportive of Babylon/Persia.
So this is in Babylon, right? We're not in Persia yet, Michael, Achashverosh, but you're absolutely right. There were Jews there. We know that from Achashverosh's party, don't we? Which you've just described. The Jews all went to pay homage to Achashverosh. Absolutely no doubt that there were Jews at Belshazzar's party. But why didn't they read it then?
Because they'd never seen it before.
They'd never seen it before either. Correct. This was a new script. That is what this is all about. That is why we're learning this chapter. And then we go on to see the queen tries to calm him down. He gets very excited and very frightened again. The queen tries to calm him down. He says, no, don't get upset, my darling. Don't let your color change. You'll be all right. And then she says, there's a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy angels. And in your father's time enlightenment, understanding and wisdom like the wisdom of the angels. In other words, there was this guy here. I know a fellow who can help you out with this and interpret it for you. What's that make it sound like?
The butler and the baker.
The butler and the baker. Correct. Joseph again. Right. Anyway, cut a long story short. Let's go to verse 13. Daniel was brought in before the king. And the king said, you are Daniel, who is of the exiles of Judea, whom my father brought from Judea. And I heard that you know a thing or two, right? Well, all these wise men have brought in, and they don't know what's going on. Verse 16, I've heard about you that you can interpret things. Now read the writing. And if you read the writing, I'll reward you royally. You shall wear purple and a golden chain on your neck. Verse 16. And what did Daniel say? Now we have a difference between Daniel and Joseph. What did Joseph say?
Yes, please.
Joseph put himself forward for the job, didn't he? He says, I've got an idea for you, Pharaoh. This is what you should do. And I think I know a man who can do it. Daniel, on the other hand, said, you can stuff your royalty. I'm not interested, right? He says, Daniel raised his voice, verse 17, and said before the king, keep your gifts for yourself and give your lavish gifts to someone else. Not interested. However, I shall read the writing for the king and I shall let him know the interpretation. How did he know the writing?
Ezra's mate.
Ezra's mate. Yeah. Yeah. He was one of the people who had learned this. But only Ezra and a few of the elites at this point knew this script. And that's why this chapter is so important for our Gemarah, because it's showing us, we're going to go into the Gemarah in a minute now. The Gemarah is going to go into a whole long business about when it was changed, what it was originally. The moment we've only heard one opinion, and that is that the Torah was given in old script and Ezra changed it to new script. That's where we're holding in the Gemarah, right? You remembered that? Well, the Gemarah is now going to turn that on its head. So before it does so, it wanted to present its credentials to show that this was a brand new script. And it's done so from this chapter of Daniel because only Daniel could read it. Even the Jews there couldn't read it because it was a brand new script. So the whole point of bringing this chapter of Daniel was not to educate us, because we should have known this already. And those people learning the Gemarah are meant to know this already, but to show us that this script was brand new. The rest of the story, you can read it if you want later on, but this has now done its job as far as our Gemarah is concerned and proven, in inverted commas, that the script was changed by Ezra and only very few people knew it at the time of Daniel. Okay, any questions before we go on back to the Gemarah?
Where did they make up the new script from? Where did it come from?
Very good question. Hold that question for about 10 words, okay? And you'll see the Gemarah asks your question.
Okay, I have a question. How it can't have been that long then that Ezra was in exile if he went back to Israel after having been in Babylon, and yet he came from Babylon with Nebuchadnezzar, and we're now just talking about Nebuchadnezzar's son. So what sort of period would
short period?
Yeah,
short period. Ezra was the leader. Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zechariah, and Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zerubbabel were the leaders that took them back to start building the second temple after a short period of time. Yes, you're right, Julie. It was only a small number of years.
24, but it should be on 25.
Okay, so let's carry on in the Gemarah. So Uchtav Hanishtavan, that's what they quote from Ezra, this changed script. And then they quote our pasuk here from Daniel that nobody could read. This is the Aramaic from our pasuk. I'll just show it you which pasuk it is on the screen. Lo kalahon, where is it? I think it's verse 8, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there it is. These are the words that the Gemarah quotes in verse 8. Nobody could read it. That's why the Gemarah's quoted it. See those words there? Well, you'll see them again right now over there, the same words. See? They quoted that pasuk. And then it says, we go right back. The Gemarah takes us back to the beginning of this whole subject. How did we get onto this whole subject of the change of the script? Can anyone remember how we got this Gemarah started? What parashah were we learning? We were learning Parashat HaMelech. Remember? Horses, wives, gold. Yeah? Famous parasha that we all know off by heart now. There it is on the screen for you. Chapter 17 of Devarim. Right? He shall not acquire many horses, shall not take many wives, shall not have too much money. And then verse 18 is what we've been discussing for the last few months. And it will be when he sits upon his royal throne that he shall write for himself
the two copies.
2 copies of the Torah. How do we say 2 copies of the Torah in this pasuk?
Mishneh Torah.
Mishneh HaTorah. What is the root of that word, Mishneh?
Mishnah.
Shoneh. Correct, Leslie, which means?
Change.
Changed or repeated from Sheni. So here, our translation is 2 copies of this Torah, right? But that is not our Gemarah's premise right at the moment. Let me take you back to the Gemarah. The Gemarah quotes 3 things. It quotes Ezra using that word nishtavan to show us that the script changed. It uses Daniel to prove to us that nobody could read it because it was new. And then it quotes our pasuk from Devarim. Look, Uchtav v'katav et Mishnei HaTorah hazot. And the Gemarah says what that means is not 2 copies of a Torah, as we've just translated it on the Chabad screen. It means Ktav hara'ui lehishtanot. You have to write it, right, in the script that was fitting to be changed. Right? That's how we got to this whole business, right? So the Gemarah says that it's there. There's a hint to this, and this is very important. I'll tell you why it's important in a sec. But there's a hint in that pasuk, in the Torah itself, that the script is going to change. Now, why is that so important, please?
Because we weren't allowed to change it at all.
It authorizes Ezra's changes.
Yes. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, how could Ezra, or maybe it was me that asked the question, how could Ezra possibly do such a thing?
I did.
How could he get away with it? Right? Why don't I come along and just change it into something else? Right? Ezra had the authority. That's what this Gemarah is telling us now. We're going to get into this. It's telling us that there's a hint in the Torah that the script is going to change. Michael, you impressed with that? No, I didn't think you would be. That's why I asked you.
Johnny, why did it have to be changed, though?
Okay, and we'll come to that in the Gemarah in a minute as well. Okay, the Gemarah asked that question too. But we're going to see some fascinating opinions here, which are different to what we have been told and what we've understood from our learning years ago. So that's the story at the moment. The Gemarah says the script was changed by Ezra, and don't think that he just did it off his own bat, says the Gemarah. He had authorization because he understood that this pasuk of Mishneh Torah, which we've translated as 2 copies or, a double copy of the Torah, doesn't mean that at all. It means Torah in the script, which is fitting to change, right? So that's his authorization. A bit schwach, if you ask me, and if you ask Michael, but there you have it. That's where the Gemarah is holding at the moment, right? Now, we're just going to digress for 6 words.
Can I say something? I've been trying to unmute because it's very difficult on the mobile. I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm sorry that you and Michael don't think so, but I think it's really clever.
It's absolutely clever. No, it is a brilliant interpretation. I'm just not sure it's true. Not that it's not brilliant, Julie. You're right. It is a brilliant interpretation, and that is the brilliance of Torah. Shivim panim l'Torah. You can find somebody who will come up with that brilliant explanation. And if you're like me and Michael, who like simple things, we're simple pshat people, me and Michael, then it doesn't quite, cut the mustard. But brilliant, it certainly is. And who am I to argue with the Gemarah? It's just that, the beauty of Shivim Panim LaTorah, 70 facets to the Torah, is that, if you can't find one of those 70 facets that suits you, there's something wrong with you. But it's not one size fits all. That's going to be, by the way, the subject of a shiur that I'm going to give in Manchester in a couple of weeks, called Judaism is Not One Size Fits All. It will probably get me banned from there, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the beauty of it is that, there are people who prefer one type of approach to another. Those of you who are regular attenders at the other shiurim will know that Hannah and I have a different approach to things. She takes a very mystical, Kabbalistic sort of approach to stuff, particularly tefillah, and I don't. And we respect each other's ability, if you like, to get something out of it in a different way. So yeah, it is brilliant. I agree with you, Julia. It's just that me and Michael like more simple things, don't we, Michael?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so we're just going to digress for 6 words to answer Johnny Halpin's question. I'm not digressing from the Gemarah because the Gemarah digresses, and the Gemarah brings up 6 words. And he says, Lama Nikra Ashurit. Why is it called Ashurit? Which I think was your question, Johnny. Why is it called Ashurit? Well, the Gemarah gives a very simple answer. You'll like this, Michael. She'ala imahem me Ashur. Where is Ashur? Ashur was Assyria. That was the empire before the Babylonians. The Babylonians then took over the Assyrian empire. Persians then took over Babylonia. But Ashur was the Assyrians. And so it's called Ashurit because the Jewish people brought it with them when they returned from their exile in Babylonia, right? When they came back, they brought this was a script that came from Ashur. It's a bit difficult, this, because if it came from Ashur, you'd have expected Belshazzar to know it. So I think it must have been a bit of an obscure script, but it came from Ashur in Assyria.
Note 6 in Art Scroll, Johnny.
Okay. Let me read that to you. I have to change glasses for that. David says I should read note 6, which I will do now. It was the script introduced to them in Assyria and Babylon where they began to use it as their sacred script. When they returned to Eretz Israel, they took this script back with them. All available evidence indicates this was not the script of ancient Assyria. Okay, now that would make sense because if it was, you'd expect Belshazzar to know it. It was called the Ashuri script only because it became the script of the Jews in Assyria and neighboring Babylonia. This explains why even the Assyrian members of Belshazzar's court could not read the handwriting on the wall. Right, now either I am in tune with the Art Scroll or I read that and had forgotten that I'd read it where I'd found it, because that's exactly what I was saying. So Ashurit came from Assyria, not necessarily because it was Assyrian, but because they brought it with them. Now, I'm going to tell you a little parallel thing, which might explain why that is likely to be true. When we have been doing our tefillah shir, we have noticed that there have been quite a lot of differences, many of them subtle, but a lot of differences between Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard, right? We're all familiar with that now because we've got the 2 different Sidurim with the extra bits and the bits missed out and what have you. There are differences. Quite a few people in the Shiur refer to the Nusach Ashkenaz as what we do in England, right? People have said in the Shiur, well, we don't do that in England. That's not the English minhag. And actually what they really meant was that's not the Nusach Ashkenaz minhag. But it got brought to England, and then it got brought from England to Israel by us, because we, except for Johnny here, I'm not sure about you, David. I think you probably daven Nusach Ashkenaz, David, yes?
Sure, I still do.
Still do, me too. So apart from Johnny, we all daven Nusach Ashkenaz, and we brought it with us from England. So the people in that shir who say, oh, we don't do that in England, that's not the English minhag, have connected that minhag to England. And it's the same thing with this Ashurit script. It wasn't actually an Ashurit script, an Assyrian script. That's what this footnote is just told.
It's mistakenly thought to it. It didn't originate from England. Nusach Ashkenaz is the Nusach of France and the Rhineland.
Yeah, and Hamburg.
Hamburg. From Frankfurt.
German.
Yeah,
Hamburg. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So when we call it, that's exactly the point I'm making, David. So when we refer to it as the Ashurit script, it's like saying the English minhag. The English minhag is not an English minhag. It's a German minhag, which was adopted in England by us. So when we say the Ashurit script, we're not saying that it was the Assyrian script, because if it was, Belshazzar would have known it. So what it is a script that became the Jewish sacred script whilst they were in Assyria and Babylonia. So it became known as the Ashurit script, in the same way as we know our minhag to be called Minhag Anglia, which is really, Minhag Anglia is really just a refinement, if you could call it that, of Minhag Hamburg, which is where it came from. Okay, so that's little digression of 6 words there, which answers
the same
Johnny's
language,
question.
though. So they're different nusachs, all having in the same language, though.
Okay, but it's the same concept, right? They called it by the name Ashurit, even though it didn't actually come from there, because it was adopted there. Right, now then, we have said so far, let's go to this next bit now. We have said so far, haven't we? Let's just recap what our Gemarah has said so far, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Let me just go. Yes, there we go. Look at the top of the page here. Rabbi Yossi. Can you see that? So what we've said so far is all Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbi Yossi's opinion is that the Torah was given in Old Ivri script, right? The Torah was given in Old Ivri script, and Ezra came along, changed it completely to the Ashuri script that we are familiar with today, the square script. That we've got that in our heads, right? That's what we've learned in this Gemarah. We've proved it, inverted commas, from Daniel and from Devarim and from Ezra. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is now going to turn that on its head and completely change a different opinion completely. Tanya, we're over here. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says, when it just says Rebbe and it doesn't say any names, that refers to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rebbe says, listen to this, Batachila, in the beginning, Biktav Zeh Nitzna Torah li Israel. The Torah was given to Israel in this script, meaning Ashurit script. We'll call it, for want of a better word, our script, right? Rebbe says the opposite to Rabbi Yossi. We were given the Torah originally in this script. This is a warning, Michael, you're not going to like it, right? Says Rebbe, Keven shechatu, since we sinned, nepach lahen leroetz. Nepach lahen leroetz. Since we sinned, it was converted into a roetz. Now, Steinsaltz translates that as into an impairment. And if you look at the notes at the bottom of the page, it says, according to the Gaonim, the word roetz or ra'atz is not a description of Ashurit script, but the name of a different version of Hebrew script used by the Samaritans. And it either means something akin to pressure or breaking, or is a metathesis of the word tsa'ar, meaning pain. One textual variant reads da'at, indicating insertion with force. So we're now introducing a third potential script. So Rebbe says we originally got the Torah in our script, but because we sinned, when did we sin?
Calf.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought initially, but it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
I thought that initially. It means we sinned at the time of the destruction of the second temple, because that's when it got all forgotten, according to Rebbe. Since we sinned, right, it was turned into roetz. Now, whatever roetz
have a look
means,
at note 7, Johnny.
Coming to it.
Okay.
The Art Scroll translation, before we get to note 7, the Art Scroll translation says, once they sinned, it turned into splinters for them. Uses the word roetz as splinters. Okay. Now, I can't ask this question to David because he's just seen the footnote and he'll see the answer. Where have you seen a version? No, let me ask this question a bit more accurately. Where have you said a version of this word roetz today? And I'll give you a bigger clue. You will hear it as well as say it this coming Shabbat. That's a good clue, isn't it, David?
It must
Yeah,
be
it's difficult.
Oz
but-
Yoshia.
Oz Yoshia, go on, Jackie. What's the word?
I don't know. This Shabbos is Shira.
You're right. Well done, Jackie. Well done. Jackie is on the ball. I am referring to the Shira because we've said it this morning, and we're going to hear it on Shabbat because this Shabbat is Shabbat Shira. Now then, so Jackie's got you halfway there. It's in the Shira. Which word in the Shira are we referring to, which is the same root as roetz? My kids, when they were at Jewish day school, I think they must have been in year 5. One of the things they had to do was to learn the Shira off by heart. Fat lot of use that was, but but anyway, that's what they had to do. They had to learn the Shira off by heart. So perhaps they would know this because they would be able to go through the Shira Ba'al Peh and pick out the word. Anyone? I'll show you.
It's Milchama or something.
There it is in verse. There we go. Verse 6. Yemincha Adonai nedari bakoach. Your right hand, O Lord, is most powerful. Yemincha Hashem. Your right hand, Hashem. Tiratz oyev. Tiratz oyev. Same word as roetz. Can you see that? Yeah? Tiratz oyev, which means, well, according to the Art Scroll, it means splinters your enemy. Translated here as crushed your enemy. But you get the idea. That's the word according to the Art Scroll translation. It means to shatter. To shatter. So shatters your enemy. Hashem's right hand shatters your enemy. So now then, if we go back to our picture, that's what I wanted to show you. That if you were to shatter these letters, you would get all these splintery bits on the left-hand side. That's what it's trying to tell us. That's what Rebbe is saying. Let me go back to the Gemarah that we're learning. Rebbe says, Batchila, in the beginning, Biktav Zen Nitnat Torah Yisrael. In our script, the Torah was given. In Ashurit script, in the square script that we're used to. Keven Shechatu, when they sinned at the time of the first temple and they did all sorts of naughty stuff, Nepach Lahen Loroetz. It got splintered, it got shattered, and they all forgot how to read it. Right? Not finished yet. Not finished yet. Gets worse, Michael. Can save your face for a little in another minute. Keven Shechazru Bahen. Since they did tshuva, since they were choser b'tshuva, when they did tshuva, when did they do tshuva?
The second temple.
Yeah, after the destruction of the first temple, they went into exile and they did tshuva.
Yeah.
Since they did tshuva, hechziro lahem, Hashem allowed them to have the writing back. And Ezra brought back, he didn't change the script at all, according to Rebbe. He just brought back the original script. that they had all forgotten how to read. Shenem, and he brings a proof of this, brings a proof from my favorite book, Zechariah. Shenema, as it says in the book of Zechariah, I'll show it to you, chapter 9, verse 12. Got it ready for you. There you are. Shuvu levitzaron, return to the stronghold. Where is the stronghold?
Israel.
Yeah, and particularly
Jerusalem.
Yerushalayim. Zechariah is saying, return to the stronghold, Asirei Hatikva, you prisoners of hope. Hatikva. Returning to Israel in this pasuk is connected to Tikva. Who wrote Hatikva? Who wrote the national anthem, Hatikva?
I said it last week.
Anyone? I can't remember. It's gone out of my head. Hoping you're going to help me out. Who wrote Hatikva? Hang on a minute. It's going to drive me mad if I don't find it now. It's gone right out of my head. Who wrote Hatikva? Come on, Google, help me out.
It wasn't actually.
There we go.
It was
Naftali Hertz Imber. Naftali Hertz Imber was the poet who wrote the first version of it. It's based on his Naftali Hertz Imber. I should have remembered that, because when I saw the name Imber, it reminded me of my grandmother who used to make Ingber at Pesach out of carrots and ginger. That's how my crazy mind works. But yeah, Naftali Hertz Imber wrote Hatikva. But Zechariah connects going back to Yerushalayim, back to Israel, which is what it's all about, isn't it? It's what Hatikva is all about. Shnot Alpayim, after 2,000 years, right? Zechariah was the first to mention it here. Anyway, what he says to us, Gam Hayom Magid Mishneh Ashiv Lach. And we are translating this as today I will restore to you a double promise, Mishneh. But what's our Gemarah going to say about Mishneh? I will restore to you. This is what Rebbe says. Let's go back to the Gemarah.
Original.
Yeah, Mishneh, I will restore to Ashiv, I will return you to Mishneh, that which was changed. I will restore to you that which was changed, i.e. the script. So Rebbe, again, Julia, another brilliant piece of exegesis, another brilliant piece of learning. Rebbe comes up with this convoluted idea that we were originally given the Torah in Ashurit script. Hashem made us forget it because we were naughty boys. And then when we did tshuva, through Ezra, Hashem gave us back the script that we had originally, the Ashurit script. And then he asks your question again. Rebbe answers your question as well, Johnny, in a different way. Lama nikra shma Ashurit. Why is it called Ashurit script? Me'usheret ichtav. Me'usheret. What is Osher with an aleph?
Rich.
No, that's with an ayin.
With an happy.
Happy. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha. Very good, Johnny. Aleph with Osher with an aleph is happy. Shemu'usheret bichtav. It's beautiful. It's happy. It's lovely. It's a lovely script. And that's why it's called Ashurit, according to Rebbe. Okay, we're out of time. We will stop there.
Johnny, can I just say there's pictures?
One sec, Johnny, one sec. I just want to summarize, please, before you say what you want to say. Okay. So far we've had two opinions. Rabbi Yossi says the Torah was given in old-fashioned Ivri script and Ezra changed it. Rebbe says no such thing. It was given in Ashurit. We didn't deserve Ashurit anymore, so it was taken off us. And then we did tshuva and it was given back to us. And both of those have got proofs from Psukim. Next week, please God, we will learn a third opinion about this whole business. You ain't finished with this yet. Yes, Johnny?
I was going to say that I remember when Moshe came down with the tablets and God saw what had happened down there with the calf and everything. The tablet split, and all the letters I've seen pictures floated away from the tablet.
Yeah,
Then when they came back the second time, maybe they came back with a different script.
Okay. I don't think we can say that.
Right.
I'll tell you why we can't. Okay. See who can read my mind. Johnny is saying that when Moshe wrote the second Luchot, he wrote them in a different script than the first Luchot. The first Luchot were in a certain script and they flew away. And then the second script. So if you are Rebbe and you're saying when they sin and you want to say it's the golden calf, and then Moshe rewrote the tablets in a different script. That's what you want to say, yeah?
Yeah, they came back.
Okay. Why am I not happy with that?
Because the Torah was written in the Ashurit script.
That's only according to Rebbe. David Marks, why am I not happy with that suggestion of Johnny Halpin's?
The first was written by Hashem.
Yeah.
The second was written by Moshe himself.
Go on.
So therefore, you would expect some differences.
Okay, but that's not what was that I'm saying. There weren't any differences.
That's what I'm saying.
But Moshe wouldn't have known this script.
Maybe that's not. I want a scriptural proof, David, for why Johnny's not right. I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue.
Yeah.
We will read it in just over a month's time. There's a clue. I've just read it again. I'm not entirely sure I'm right, but anyway, I'm going to have a go. Vayoma Hashem el Moshe, Psol lecha shnei luchot avanim karishonim, v'chatavti al haluchot et hadvarim asher hayu al haluchot arishonim asher shibarta. Make yourself 2 more stones, v'chatavti, and I will write on the luchot et hadvarim asher hayu al haluchot arishonim. The words that were on the first Rishonim. You could still argue, Johnny, that they were the same words, but in a different script. But I'm going to say, Asher hayu ala luchot rishonim asher shibarta, that were on the first luchot that you broke, means that they were complete copies of the first one. That's what I'm going to say.
I'm sure there's a tradition somewhere that supports what Johnny's saying.
Well, that it came out in Ashurit?
That there were 2 different scripts.
Well, Rebbe says so here.
No. To do with Matan Torah, the first and the second.
All right, that's your homework, David. Find it for us. Find it for us for the beginning of next week's shiur.
I'll try and find.
Were these words from Yitro?
That was from Kitisa. It's what we read on. The reason I said we're going to read it in just over a month's time is because we'll read it on Tanis Esther. It's what we read on a fast day, but we will read it in Kitisa as well before that. You're right.
Just look at note 7, the Mahashah, which is very nice.
Okay, I'll just read you that. Sorry, we're out of time. Those of you who have to go. Okay. The Mahashah interprets this to mean that the Hebrew alphabet became converted. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, became converted into a splintered script, lacking the grace and beauty of the Ashuri script. The ancient Hebrew script is indeed a thin and spidery form of the script. Yeah, that's why I wanted to show you this. Spidery, and in fact, I even said it, didn't I, earlier on? And that is why, Johnny, Rebbe says, I'll tell you why it's called Ashurit, because it's Ma'usheret, it's beautiful. And the original, original according to Rebbe Yossi, and the second script according to Rebbe, meaning the Ivri script on the left-hand side there of the screen, is not so beautiful. And I think I would agree with him. It's all a bit spidery, isn't it, and splintery.
Can I just say something about Minhag Anglia appropriate for this week?
Go on.
There's something that I think is certainly Minhag Anglia and nothing to do with a German rite. I don't know if you did this in Manchester, but when it came to Shabbat Shira and Shvi Shel Pesach, the Minhag was to sing the Shira in Pesukei de Zimra to the Spanish and Portuguese tune Bendigamos, and also to read the Shira itself from the Torah with that tune.
Wow, never heard that.
Never heard that in Manchester. Maybe it was only United Synagogue.
Absolutely never heard that. I mean, I know the tune of Bendigamas, but only because I was taught it by a bunch of Gibraltarian students who used to come to us. Never heard it before that. Certainly never heard the Shira sung to Bendigamas. And in fact, I've never even heard of that. So that's something I've learned today.
In the school that I was brought up with, in the choir sung it with the Baal Korah, which is obviously completely halakhically wrong.
Okay, so there's two pieces of homework for you, David. I want to know the source of singing Shira to Bendigamas. I suspect it does come from the United Synagogue's origins. Because the United Synagogue's origins, I learned this from Rabbi Aubrey Hirsch recently on a podcast. The United Synagogue's origins are in there was the first shul that came along was the Spanish and Portuguese
from Amsterdam.
From Amsterdam, and then came along the Hamburg shul, right?
Yeah.
And then they all amalgamated. The shuls amalgamated to become, and when you amalgamate something, it becomes...
You amalgamate the minhagim.
Yeah, it becomes called...
United Synagogue.
United. They united the synagogues, and it became the United Synagogue. Fascinating history of the United Synagogue. So maybe this minhag of singing it to Bendigamas goes right back to the beginning of the 18th century when this happened, when the United Synagogue was first formed. Wow. That's okay. I want you to do that research, David. That's giving me something.
Well, you've done it because I think what you said makes total sense.
First time I've heard that. It's very fascinating. Yes, Julia.
Frank Weinberg.
I was just going to say on the point about the Ivrit script and that it's sprawly. I was reading a report on one of my grandchildren, actually, who has been diagnosed as dyslexic. And one of the pointers, apparently, is bad handwriting. And I was wondering, because dyslexia, I think the vision or the letters must be splintered. And I wondered if, I thought there was quite a good connection between the Ivrit, which is, definitely not as attractive as the Ashurit, and dyslexia, that think that the vision is splintered when you view it.
How interesting. Very interesting. And the use of that word splintered as well. I don't think you can always blame bad handwriting on dyslexia, although I'm sure it's true that if you are dyslexic, it's harder to write. I am definitely not dyslexic, and I have the most appalling handwriting. So I have children and other relatives of mine who are very dyslexic, who've got much better handwriting than me. So there you go. Very interesting. Thank you for that. Sorry that I've kept you so long, but it was all very interesting.
No, that's what blame me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny.
See you all next week, please God. Let me just stop the recording. Hang on. Let me stop the recording. For those of you